Janusz Bryzek founded 9 Silicon Valley MEMS companies. In 1994, he was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by Sensors magazine, and in 2003 by Mansef. In 2013, Bryzek started the Trillion Sensors initiative with the goal of accelerating the development of new sensor types to target the elimination of major global problems. EoXs co-sponsored the Trillion Sensor Summit last fall, and the technology roadmap that will evolve from that and subsequent T-Sensor Summits will be available in 2015. Janusz Bryzek will share his perspectives with us today on Quantified Us, the fusion of sensors, the Internet of Everything, and exponential organizations. Janusz.
Okay, Marta, thanks very much for a very nice introduction, and welcome everybody. I will be telling you today about a big change that is happening around us and the change that we can participate in. So I put 2 sections today. The first one is kind of introduction to basic concepts, and the second one, an overview of amazing sensor-based products that are already on the market. So evolution of us includes major changes in the global landscape for generation of global GDP. Before the technical revolutions, the countries with the largest number of residents generated the largest gross domestic product. The first technical revolution based on steam, electricity, internal combustion, and similar technologies coming from Europe changed this, and the biggest GDP was generated in Europe by countries that had access to this technology. The second revolution started with transistors, computers, and internet, and here US and Japan started to dominate the global GDP. We are at the beginning of the next revolution, fusing sensors with computing and communication. And this revolution is expected to free all of us from manual labor and leave for us the creative aspect of work, where robots and computers will be taking all those manual tasks that not too many of us like to do. And the next revolution that we are looking at following is where the computers will be taking majority of our lives, leaving us the interface between our brain and the computers to enjoy the life and enjoy different things, where, in a sense, the world will dramatically change and the way we behave will change. So some of you probably heard about Quantified Self, which is a movement to incorporate the measurements from us, from our body, using sensors, and change our life based on the results to improve our health, in our fitness, and our mental mood. The emerging Quantified Us extends this to all the people on Earth. And Quantified X extends this to all the things on Earth, which is in line with Internet of Things. So a quick introduction for abundance. Some of you learned the definition. Some of them are probably not very familiar based on my discussion last night with many of you at the dinner. So abundance in this sense is defined by Peter Diamandis, and I think there is here a co-founder of the term here that told me about this last night. And the objective here is to create a balance between supply and demand of goods and services on Earth. And this is aiming at elimination of major global problems like hunger, lack of medical care, lack of clean air and clean water, and lack of energy. To achieve this, among other things, we will need, per Peter, approximately 45 trillion sensors in approximately 20 years. So many of these are not yet developed, and this was the trigger for me looking at accelerating development of these new sensors, because historically, from prototypes to volume production, sensors took 30 years, so it was pretty long time. So left to its natural cycle, sensors would delay abundance. And the enablers for abundance are 8 technologies considered exponential, from biotech through robotics. There is a big effort by billionaires to do things that were never done before, looking at capability that the deep pockets enable. They do also a lot of techno-philanthropic activities, again, funded personally. And we have also the rising billion. The poorest billion people on Earth is being plugged to the global economy through microfinance, through communication, through transportation. And abundance on the surface looks like a great idea, but it started to get very strong legs, resulting from emergence of big global tides such as Internet of Everything or Internet of Things, mobile health, and many other global tides. So quick introduction to Internet of Everything. Few buzzwords, few abbreviations include IoE and EoX. And in a sense, this is the world of connected devices around all of us. There are a few things that enable this right now that I may skip because based on my yesterday conversation, most of you are not yet deeply involved in this technology, but probably the most attractive element of EoX is the fact that Cisco is forecasting the growth of this market by $19 trillion, GE by $15.5 trillion. So these are the numbers that are changing the world. Total GDP of the US last year was $16.5 trillion. Global GDP is around $70 trillion right now. So when we are looking into the future, $19 trillion is roughly 20% of global GDP. So we never had, in the history of humans on Earth, such a big economic tide. And Cisco is forecasting that about 5% of Internet of Everything will be represented by sensors. So these are huge numbers, and I am pretty happy with this forecast because when I was starting looking at abundance, I couldn't find anything to support it. And right now, we have a big tide supported by many companies. And on the top of this, we have already first acquisitions that are extremely exciting, such as Nest, the company making 2 products, thermostat and smoke detector connected via web, was sold to Google for $3.2 billion. And the company has small sales on the order of $10 or $20 million only. So this is pretty exciting and implies that many of the large players in the marketplace believe into this space. M-Health or mobile health or digital health or e-health, there are multiple names for this, is another big driver for absorption of sensors. This is related to improving our health and measuring almost every aspect of our body using a variety of different sensors. The first wave focused on fitness. We have a large number of companies that are providing products enabling us to measure the fitness. And the second wave will be embedding more and more sophisticated health sensors that we can continuously measure what we are doing and what is our health baseline, from which we can extract changes that provide ability of forecasting problems very, very early. And this will change dramatically also medical industry. Many companies already have death sentence. The first one that Peter Diamandis announced as declining is EKG equipment, approximately $5 billion industry that is being replaced by all these EKG measuring gadgets. And also the doctor's function will change dramatically because suddenly the doctor will get statistically validated diagnosis coming from supercomputers. Dr. Watson is one of the things that you can use today for medical diagnosis in many areas. And with time, it will be available at your mobile device. And in parallel, there is emergence of exponential organizations. Some of you familiar with Peter Diamandis know that Singularity University is teaching on this subject if you are interested. And exponential organizations follow so-called 6D process, which is, there are a few examples of very fast-growing companies already, $0 to $1 billion in sales or market cap in just 1 or 2 or 3 years. And the 6D process is very typical for this type of organizations, where first the product is digitized, and once it's digitized, it's not good enough typically, so it takes a while before it's appealing to big players. Once it's appealing, it's so the first is digitized and deceptive phase. The third phase is disruptive, where it's good enough for somebody to adopt in large volume, and then it's becoming dematerialized, like, for example, CDs were converted to bitstream for download. And then it's demonetized. The new business models are invented. For example, if your cell phone, you are buying subsidized hardware in exchange for the subscription contract. And then the last phase is democratization, which enables technology to be deployed globally for everybody. So this is a new type of organization called exponential that is displacing or replacing linear companies that currently dominate the market. So I put together a few samples for sensor-based exponential organizations, ranging from monitoring food quality and processing this data in the at the internet level cloud, and selling the information about the food quality, providing clothing and foods for free in exchange for the contract to derive the health information from these devices. Monitoring all the things in your refrigerator, including level and freshness, and alerting you whenever something has to be replenished, in exchange maybe for permission to send you targeted advertising. Mood processing based on sensor data collection in exchange for sending you information about entertainment. Obesity monitoring system that can be provided free in agreement for accepting advertising. So these are major changes that are coming to the market. Some of them are already on the market, and they are redefining the way we are doing business. So Trillion Sensor, in short, T-Sensors initiative is focused on 3 components. The first one, if I want to accelerate development of sensors that don't exist, I wanted to get the vision of what will be needed. So in anticipation of this, we created Tsensors Summits, conferences that are collecting visions from sensor visionaries. We did the test drive at UC Berkeley last year in April, then at Stanford in October, and then in Tokyo, and I have a few more coming right now. Munich in September, San Diego November, Tokyo in December, and then we are working Abu Dhabi most likely in March, and China in May. Based on these visions, which are providing the target for development, the next phase is the roadmap that we started last month and planning to finish by the end of the year, which is recommending what are the most suitable technologies to support these new emerging applications. And the next phase would be stimulation of the supply chain for all these sensors. So in essence, we are preparing the foundation for the business plan. This is the market, these are the technologies. So you, startups, come in and we can help you maybe to get funding and start to develop these technologies. And you big companies start to develop these technologies, and you universities start to develop foundation for these technologies. So probably the biggest change so far that I can see is UC San Diego got a new dean from UC Berkeley, Al Pisano, who is planning to restructure the curriculum at UC San Diego to support exponential technologies. UC Berkeley started to think about the same thing as a foundation for the acceleration. So when I was looking originally at the market, some of you probably didn't realize that over the last 6 years, the market for sensors in consumer space grew over 200% per year from about 10 million units in 2007 when iPhone was introduced to about 10 billion units this year. 1,000 times increase in volumes for consumer market. It's unbelievable. So we are working another 1,000 times in the future, and the people in line with this abundance looks for 45 trillion in 20 years. Swarm Lab and UC Berkeley is here, 7 trillion. We have Texas Instruments. We have forecasts from Winter Research, HP, Bosch. So number of other big companies have visions that this is coming to the market very quickly. And since this is the new type of device coming to the market, many of the research organizations don't see it yet, and that's why I needed visionaries. And when you're looking historically at the growth of this market, I put together semi-market growth, which is about 300 billion right now, MEMS market growth, which is currently about $12 billion, and the ratio between these two. So we started many years ago with about 1.5% of the market represented by MEMS devices or sensors. Currently, it's about 4%. And we are looking at the growth of the market triggered by IoE and some other global tides. So MEMS may start to represent about 1/3 of semiconductor market. And when you're looking at the global picture, this is global GDP and forecast for Internet of Everything to represent by 2020 about 20% of GDP. And at this time, it starts to move the entire global GDP. The applications that came out from Fairchild that are likely to go into high volume represent the business opportunities for many of us here. I put together the apps. So we have education that I will talk about this a little bit later. Then we have non-invasive health monitoring, minimally invasive health monitoring, personal imaging, primarily medical, computer senses, environmental sensing, infrastructure sensing, smart food production, smart energy generation, and emerging automotive sensors as the most likely ultra-high volume applications impacting abundance, and number of different technologies that are supporting this growth. So red dot here represents an opportunity for the companies, both developed and startups, and also the target development for universities. And if this goes as presented, this will create a dramatic number, a huge number of new jobs based on some assumptions. Around 170 million jobs could be created by 2020 by emergence of Internet of Everything. We have in the US last year about 144 million jobs, so this is much more than the entire US workforce. And majority of these new jobs will be knowledge workers. And when we are looking at partitioning of, let's say, Apple selling price, about 2/3 of the selling price stays in the US. So most of these jobs related to EoX will be in industrialized countries. And in parallel, we know that robots are forecasted to eliminate 50% of the US workforce. And exponential organizations are expected to eliminate 40% of Fortune 500 companies. So we will have a dramatic loss of jobs in certain areas and dramatic growth of jobs in other areas. And this will require a massive retraining, starting at the high school and at the university level to support these global changes. And in parallel, while we have many, many challenges in this path, probably the biggest challenge is the growth of information generated by sensors. The forecast is by 2020, we will reach a brontobyte. For most of you, brontobyte is a new term, is the 10 to the 27th bytes. So this is orders of magnitude larger than the entire internet traffic today. And a number of techniques used to accelerate development were pioneered by XPRIZE Foundation. These are two of the sensing competitions, Nokia, $2.25 million, and Qualcomm, $10 million competition for developing sensors monitoring health in the cell phone. So the first phase for Nokia was completed last year. Qualcomm has, I think, another 2 years to go. This last part will show you quickly what is already in the marketplace based on sensors. So it's amazing. So the first one is a cell phone. You are probably using these sensors not knowing it. So the market is expected to grow still in mobile space 35% per year for sensors. And the most advanced sensor in the market, I think, is S4. It has pressure, acceleration, humidity, proximity, light, gyro sensors. So there are multiple silicon-based sensing devices embedded already. S5 drop humidity sensor, but iPhone i6 is rumored to have pressure, temperature, and humidity added to additional sensors. Body is being slowly turned into the host for the computer. So you can see in this picture from different helmets, bands, straps, watches, and so on, necklaces, a lot of devices are measuring our performance. And the number of companies, I think 36 in this picture, that jumped relatively early in the area of wellness, chronic pain monitoring, diagnostics, and monitoring. You will hear a bit later from Proteus. Mark Zeblik is here in the audience. And they were focusing on measuring primarily motion, heart rate, skin moisture, brain activity, body temperature, glucose, and some other variables. Sensors are going on the arms and going on the legs, in this case monitoring performance of all the muscles and monitoring performance of the body from oxygen, blood volume, skin temperature, heart rate. This is kind of interesting development. The first, these are targeting women. The first design is a bra that is monitoring attraction of women to men. And when the attraction is detected based on sensors, the latch is opening here. The second design of the bra is run by Microsoft. So based on sensors, they are detecting the urge to eat, to binge on the food, and they can alert you via a cell phone. And the third design here embeds temperature sensors in the bra that are early detecting cancer. Shoes are getting smart. The insole here has 13 pressure sensors and acceleration sensor and temperature sensor. And based on so many sensors in the shoe, they can detect medical problems while you are walking. A Nike shoe has 8 sensors, and they can measure the jump height, and probably the highest level of excitement that MEMS devices created was with the Braun shoe from Nike. This is for basketball players. And they introduced limited edition of 50,000 pairs last year. And in Chicago, the people were waiting, so each store was getting only a few pairs. In Chicago, the people in line were waiting for this shoe. And they were using knives to get the people ahead of them out of the queue. And one mother left 2 small kids in the car while she was waiting in line, and police came to arrest her for child abuse. Sensors for monitoring asthma performance, for the baby's performance, and this is another one for women, breast analysis to eliminate the need for mammogram. Sensors are being integrated in clothing, and they can measure everything from EKG through breathing rate and many other parameters. So these are piezoelectric fibers. Sensors are integrated into the watch on the left, which has 9 degrees of freedom, triaxial gyro, triaxial accel, triaxial magnetic, and a heart monitor. And on the right, it's a UV sensors embedded in the bracelet, so it's becoming a jewelry smart jewelry. Sensors are being tattooed on the skin, and when you're looking, this is from UC San Diego and also startup MC10 connected to University in Chicago. So here you have strain sensors, temperature sensors, ECG sensors, EEG and EMG sensors, photodetectors. It's powered by external magnetic field, and it's read by external reader using transmitted energy. So this is coming already to the market pretty quickly. On more sophisticated stuff, trying to read the brain. These are a few implementations of the brainwave-based sensors. They are trying to gauge the emotions, and in this case, it's bunny ear. When you are happy, the bunny ears are up. When you are down, bunny ears are down. The same with the tail. Tail is going either up or down depending on your mood. And it's kind of amazing because this is driven by your brain waves. So smart diapers with sensors monitoring urinary tract infection in kids. Pet activity monitor. Multiple sensors for gaming and radiation sensor embedded in the watch. Sensors to monitor performance of the golfers, baseball players, and tennis players with tracking the swings. These are directly embedded into the tennis racket from Biolab. And here, a flywheel with gyros enables you to run up to, I think, 12 miles an hour safely and in stable condition. A large number of devices monitoring health performance are attached to the sensors already. This is EKG monitor from AliveCore. This is the first one. They have a doctor on call, so after you scan, the image is sent to the doctor, and doctor sends you the interpretation almost in real time. This guy can detect radiation and organicity of the food, and EoXs, spin out from MIT, can check for 25 diseases already. Tricorders from Scanado. This is local company spin out from NASA Ames. This is the casing for the cell phone. So the sensors are embedded in the cell phone case, and they can measure heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, oxygen, ECG. They have also urine analysis module, and they have the same thing available as a small handheld device. So they are going through FDA approval right now. Sensors enable shake stabilization for the spoon. For Parkinson's disease people, enable translating text to voice for blind people. Monitor impact on your head when you are playing, let's say, football. There are, I think, 10 acceleration sensors in this helmet. Enable connectivity to your brain to extract information. And this is one of the more sophisticated devices because they claim you can extract thoughts, feelings, and expressions based on EEG signals. So this is pretty powerful. It requires a lot of software. It requires computer learning, but provides already amazing results. And I showed you earlier these toys from Japan. Cuffless blood pressure sensing is another kind of holy grail. A number of companies are trying to develop. This one already was approved by FDA a few months ago and measures not only continuous blood pressure, but also skin temperature, ECG, blood oxygen, respiration rate, and temperature. Multiple technologies are used for this technology, for these measurements. Non-invasive glucose monitoring was also holy grail. Those of you that maybe are not close to this field, over the last 20 years, probably several $1 billion were invested by venture capital and corporate divisions to develop continuous non-invasive glucose monitoring system. All of them, in a sense, failed. So now we have next wave coming to the market. What is kind of interesting, this was San Jose company, C8 Medisensors. Altogether raised $120 million, including $43 million in 2012. They were using this Raman spectroscopy. Algorithm was found unstable, and they closed the door last year. Apple hired most of the people. Personal glucose monitoring in the contact lens by Google, in the toilet by Toto in Japan. More sophisticated stuff, the ultrasound scanner, X-ray machine, portable X-ray machine, printed microfluidics where you can get diagnostics of your body fluids for 0.1 cent per test. And slightly higher cost is embedded by Theranos, spin out from Stanford, and they rolled this out in Walgreens in Palo Alto. So instead of few syringes of blood for 200 tests, they are taking only a drop of blood. Intelligent pills, I think Mark will be talking about this later. Chemical sensors, broad range of chemical sensors coming to the market. Spectrometer making amazing things such as ability of measuring sweetness of the apple before you buy it. Or this is the first device coming to the market that goes through the web and gives you information whether the food is safe for you to eat. Cosmetics-based applications, food quality testing, breath sensing based on sensors to detect multiple diseases. And you can buy one of the devices on the market for testing your sobriety. And more sophisticated devices, cancer-killing devices, by combining MEMS devices with nanotechnology and cathetered balloons with sensing the operation of the balloon. So it was pretty broad range of applications already on the market. The question is how many sensors? Since you are not sensor guys, there were 81 that I tested, 81 sensor types in this short presentation. And when you are looking at our future, I think the future will be much more amazing, much more products coming to the market that are just mind-boggling. And this will be creating multiple opportunities for business, very large opportunities. And the room for these businesses is right now estimated at $19 trillion. This rapid revolution will make disappearance of many companies. At least 40% of Fortune 500 is expected to disappear. Employment will be dramatically shifted, so we need to think about retraining. And the byproduct of this third revolution will be abundance. Medical diagnostics for all of us will be widely available. All of us will live longer, healthier, and will start to cure diseases instead of elevating the symptoms. And probably this will create the biggest bull market in the history of people on Earth. And we know already that the first billionaires using this technology were created through the acquisition of Nest. So I think this concludes my presentation. Thank you for the attention.
We have time for one question, if there is. Let me ask Janusz, as you look around the world and you're presenting this vision in many places around the world, where do you see the greatest activity? Where is the ferment? Where is it going to happen first?
There are kind of two types of reactions that I'm getting to this presentation. In the US, the people are excited with the size of opportunity. For the first time, sensors are entering the mainstream of economy. And we were developing this technology for a long time. It was always very hard to develop, and it was a small brother or small sister of semiconductor industry. Now, as you see, it's starting to enter the mainstream. So US, I think, it looks at this as a dramatic opportunities coming to the market for starting the new businesses and transforming businesses. Reaction in Asia is kind of interesting because when I'm talking about potential for big corporations to be displaced within 10 years by new organizations, exponential organizations, large corporations didn't know about this. So Peter Diamandis, the Exponential Organization, and all of these teams are relatively well known around Palo Alto. And further you go from Palo Alto, they are not known. So in Asia, it's like a revelation that we have to think what we can do as big organization to prevent obsolescence.
Great, thank you. I would like to think that here at Stanford, at EoX, that we are one of the best places in the world to not only think about sensors, but the people that use them.
Yeah, a big impact on people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.